Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 566, Games with Modular Boards.
Welcome, citizens, to Meeple Nation. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, warm up those dice, and join us at the game table as we discuss board games and the board gaming world. Each week, the hosts of Meeple Nation share their love for board games and the amazing memories that come from playing games with some very outstanding people. Let us now join our hosts in their natural habitat, the game table.
The Meeple Nation podcast is sponsored by Game Toppers LLC. Go check them out. They have what you need to make every game night epic and amazing by upgrading your table or picking up some amazing mats or other insanely awesome accessories. They've even got stuff for the kids and some really, really cool new mat racks and mat holders that can solve a plethora of storage issues. So go check them out at GameToppersLLC.com.
Welcome to Meeple Nation. We are your hosts. I'm Nathan Howard.
And I'm Douglas Stewart.
Doug, it's just you and I.
Yep. It's becoming a tale as old as time.
It is.
We really feel bad for Andy. He's got the black lung.
He canceled his game night on Friday because his kids were sick.
Yep.
And we record on Monday nights, and now Andy's got the curse.
Sick. Yeah.
Yeah, so
it's like I don't think anybody taught him that when your kids get sick, you're not supposed to go hang out with them.
Yeah, don't go licking their doorknobs. Yeah, because that's
he didn't get the memo.
No. He said he actually tried to separate himself.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Family. Yeah, that's just almost impossible.
You're under the same roof. We got it, and I think you and I got it at the same time.
We did,
like a month ago.
It was awful,
and it hit everybody in our house.
Yeah,
and
So fortunately, our kids were actually out of town. They were visiting grandparents for the weekend, and Lydia and I got it, and it just dropped us like a sack of potatoes. It was so bad, and then they got back just in time for us to recover, and none of them ever caught it.
Oh, that's good.
So
wow, that's awesome. Very lucky.
They dodged it, but we did not.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's not what everybody tuned in for.
It is definitely not what everyone tuned in for.
So Meeple Nation has a podcast. We do have a podcast. This is it. Meeple Nation also has a web page. You can go there and find out all of our episodes there. You can find pictures to some of our socials, bios about us, and of course there is our Patreon link. We love our patrons. Our patrons help make the podcast possible. I don't know if those out there caught it, but we also have, I'm going to trademark this word, we have a sidecast.
I like it.
We're going to push out an episode dedicated to SaltCON. I think we're going to stick with the name SaltPOD, a SaltCON podcast hosted by Meeple Nation. And so that should come through your feed as a regular episode for now, unless we move it to a different site and move it on its own. But for now, you should get one of those roughly once a month.
Yep.
The first two will kick out pretty quick to that starting in March.
Yeah, they'll slow down. We are quite involved with SaltCON. We're very grateful that they've kind of allowed us to sort of take that on, because that's something I think we have a lot of passion for. We know that that's not going to be of interest to everyone, so it'll be in your feed, but you just feel free to skip those episodes if it's not for you. But hopefully it'll generate some interest, and definitely check those out, because SaltCON convention here in Utah, and it's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah,
and if you have the opportunity to make it, you should definitely check it out.
Well worth your sky miles.
I think it is.
Yeah. Plus, you get to come out and hang with us. But also, that's not enough. There is an email. You can email us at meeplenation@gmail.com. It's kind of funny. The email is usually pretty quiet. Although last time we were talking about income games, that first episode dropped, and I got like a dozen emails saying, well, you didn't talk about this game. You didn't talk about this game. This game better be in your top 5.
Yeah, they were all in the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were some great games. Arc Nova and Power Grid, I think, was one of the big ones, too, that people are like, you should have talked about this game. Yeah. So and that was great. And we love that feedback. So if there's ever a game that you feel we're missing, let us know. And there's a game that should be on our radar, also let us know. That's what we really want. We want some cool games that we need to hit.
Fantastic. Well, Nathan, that brings us to our favorite part of almost every podcast, and that is where we get to talk about all the amazing and fun things we've been playing over the last week, sometimes 2, sometimes longer.
Yeah.
But it's the highlights. And
Highlight 30.
Yeah. Now I see here you've got a big list of stuff, so I'm excited to see which one of these you choose. What are you talking about this week?
I haven't narrowed down my list, so let's take this because I set a pretty lofty goal for 2025
Yeah.
that I wanted to play 200 new to me games.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And that is a lot. And I am working my tail off to get these in. But I want to talk about, looking at this list, I want to talk about...
Do you want me to spin the wheel?
I should do that. Let's just spin the wheel here.
Do you want to Chwazi for it?
I'm going to talk about Castle Combo.
Oh, okay.
Castle Combo is a very simple, fun game that you can just play over and over and over again. And it is definitely going to be one of my 10 for 10 this year. You have 2 rows that you're purchasing cards from. You start with 15 gold. I don't know if that increases with the more than 2 players, but as a 2-player game, you start with 15 gold, and you're going to use this gold to buy individuals from the roll. The bottom row, they're going to be cheaper. Most of them are going to be cheaper, and they are kind of the peasant row. And then you have the nobility row that's up a little bit higher, and they're going to be a little bit more expensive. You'll have your knights up there, and below you'll have your squires, and you have the hegemony between the 2 groups. A lot of that is blended in there, but you're taking all those people and you're putting them into your own grid, and that grid is a 3x3 grid. So you're going to buy and place 9 cards, and hopefully you're going to be able to buy and place 9 cards. However, if you run out of money and you have no money to buy cards, then you have to essentially sell the card. So you're going to take the card and you're going to put it face down in your grid. Instead of paying the gold, you're going to get the gold. So hopefully you can buy more stuff later. You're trying to create patterns. If I fill my right column, then I'm going to score points there. Or if I fill my top row, I'm going to score certain points there from some of the individuals. Or you're going to have neighbor dependencies, different things that you're trying to associate with all those people that you're putting in your tableau to try to score points. Very quick, very easy, and really a lot of fun. And this is Castle Combo, fairly available and very accessible and very replayable.
Nice. I'm glad you played this, and I would totally want to check this out. It has kind of an art style that wouldn't like immediately pull me in. Not that it's bad, just that it's not necessarily my thing. But as I'm looking through it, I'm seeing kind of what you're talking about, and yeah, this looks good.
Yeah, it's really good. I very much enjoy it.
Yeah, lightweight. I think like a 1.7 on the scale.
Yeah,
so,
super light game.
Excellent.
Jody introduced this to me, and we've been playing it ever since.
Fantastic. Well, Nathan, I am here to give the people what they want.
Oh,
yeah.
It's not Castle Combo?
That was, don't get me wrong, they're happy about it. But what people have really been wanting to know, they want to know what the status is of my Shelf of Shame. So one of my goals in 2025, when we talked about this, either the end of last year or first part of this year, I don't remember which, we kind of had a conversation about some of the goals that you had set. I'm not really a goal setter. Like that isn't like a thing for me, in the same way that you are. Like I don't have specific number goals or anything.
Right.
But one of the big goals that I had for 2025, and I've talked about this before, I've attacked this from different angles and different things, but 2025 really is the year of the Shelf of Shame. And I do have a game plan in place. I am starting to work through some things, but once a month, I'm going to give just a little bit, I'm going to hold myself accountable. So once a month, as we're recording, after the 1 month is done and we're kind of closing out, I'm going to go through and just kind of give a quick Shelf of Shame update. So this is this is where I'm at. So as of the new year, when the clock ticked over, if you go onto my BGG and you look at stuff that I own that I have not played. Now this does include expansions.
Uh-huh.
So be kind, because a lot, in fact, the vast majority of this is expansions. If I take the expansions out, this number drops by about a quarter of what this number is. But if you include expansions, at the beginning of the year, I have 296 titles that are on my Shelf of Shame. Now,
Oh, wow.
now
I don't even want to look at mine.
that's not nearly as impressive as the number that it would pull up for you. And people should know that. But that's still a ton, right? That is too many.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely way too many. Like I said, a lot of these are expansions. I could play a game of something and knock 5 or 6 of these off at a time. Again, not all these are full games. I think if I filter out by expansions, it's somewhere around 70 or 80. It's not that bad. But I have 296 titles. And in January, I added 10 Kickstarter titles because apparently they're all fulfilling. Plus, I added 3 purchases, and I was able to play 3 games from my shelf of shame. So after all that preamble and how amazing this year is going to be at knocking stuff off the shelf of shame,
You got 3.
I got 3 off, but added 13. So I am ending. So as of February 1st, I went from 296 to 306. So the number is climbing, but it's not going to for the whole year. I really am going to get these knocked off, and it's going to happen. But one of the games that I just played, so it's not one of the ones that counted toward January. It'll be a February game, and that was Worms, the board game.
Oh, I really wanted to try this one.
Yes. Yeah. Let me tell you something, Nathan, you're actually really going to like this. You know what it does is it actually captures a lot of the magic from Thunder Road Vendetta. You know, just
really?
You know, just that crazy, like anything could happen, random. The dice just dictate that, guess what? Your car blows up. That is exactly what this game does. I do understand that art style and gameplay on this, it's going to turn some people off. This is very much based on the video game. This is a video game that when I was growing up and I was in high school, me and my friends would get together, we'd play this. It was easily networked, so we'd play it over the network at LAN parties as sort of a palate cleanser between heavier games. Or you could, sit at the same computer and take turns. This is just a really great little side-scrolling video game. Worms, you're just launching crazy banana bombs and bazookas and stuff at each other, trying to blow up each other's worms.
Fun.
It's really, really good times. So this converts it into the board game form, and I am not disappointed. I've only played this once, and it was so stinking fun. And it implements all of the same stuff from the video game, right? One of the drops was the banana bomb, and I tried to launch it just like in the video game. I whiffed and it plopped right into the ocean and was wasted. But I had some really fun bazooka. I shot a bazooka one time. It missed the tile of the enemy that I wanted to hit, but it hit the neighboring tile, blew up a can of oil. That oil exploded and pushed a bunch of stuff over. It started his tile on fire and did a bunch of damage, and then triggered an explosion on a mine. And it was just glorious. And it was just a series of explosions and fire, and it ended in multiple worms deaths, including one of my own. And
this has got my name all over it.
Totally. It was awesome. I know that it's not going to be for everyone because that type of play isn't necessarily for everyone. But if you just want quick, really fast-paced, chaotic fun, this is absolutely a game worth checking out. It's just a barrel of laughs, and it's chaos, and it's really fun, but it still gives you some fun things to think about, like the actual process of what worm am I going to activate? How do I want to move it around the board? How am I going to dodge obstacles? What risks do I want to take? What card do I want to play? What combos can I create? All of those things are there. They're crunchy. They're fun. Right? It's a really fun decision. It's not a mindless decision space. There's a lot to think about and a lot to really enjoy. I'm really excited that we're, hopefully going to get this to the table more. This is what I'm teaching at SaltCON Spring.
Oh, really?
Can't wait.
I saw that. Yeah, I did know that.
I have nothing but good to say about it after one play. Can't wait to play it some more.
Excellent. While we were talking, I went and filtered my list.
Okay.
There's some issues with my filter because first off, it said including expansions.
Oh, okay.
803.
Yeah, I bet that's right.
But a lot of those games are games that I've owned, I've played, but before I was tracking games.
Okay.
And there's a lot of expansions in there. So I filtered out the expansions. I'm not that far above you, Doug.
Okay.
389.
But that was without the expansions.
Without expansions.
Mine's 396 with, I guess 306 now.
Bummer.
That's with expansions. I got to make that very clear.
Yeah.
If I take the expansions out, in fact, that's actually really something that I ought to do. I can do that. I have it open right now.
Yeah, scrolling through the list too, I got maybe my collection's not as big as I think it is either.
I have 81. If I take out expansions, only 81.
Oh, wow. I got you. I got 89. But I'm seeing double games. Risk Star Wars Edition. I have on there twice. Somebody needs to go through and filter out there.
Yeah, you got to get that cleaned up. I take a lot of time to make sure my BGG library is very up to date. It helps when you put the time into making your library.
I'm sitting right here, Doug.
You got to maintain that collection, Nathan.
I got some work to do going through this. Yeah, there's a lot of... Oh, yeah, there's games in here that I've culled. Yeah, somebody needs to go through this. Somebody needs to be in charge of my game list.
See, and I like to know what games I've played, and I like to know what I've rated them. Even if I don't own a game, I still add it to my collection. I have a comment that I put in. It's a non-library copy. So then I can filter out all the stuff I don't own by comment. Kind of customized my collection so I can loop through and filter some of those things out. I love the tools on BGG. If people aren't using those, you should definitely check it out. Maintaining a collection on there is awesome.
Truly is.
Really powerful tool.
I do have some work to do. There's so many of these that I have played. Somebody's got issues, though.
Okay.
That should be next year's goal. Clean
What-
up. Actually, it probably should be this year's goal. Clean up your BGG list.
What step is admittance? We can't remember.
I don't know. It should be like 1 through 6, I'm sure.
Probably
Denial's
is.
in there for sure.
Yeah.
And denial's probably my biggest flaw. It's not that bad. Oh, look, shiny new game.
As we're moving stacks of board games out of the way just so we can record. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. So, anyways, we are here not to talk about our modular game table that has stacks of games on it, but we are talking about modular games, which include tile, cardboard, cards even. We tend to enjoy and rather even seek out some of these games with modular boards. As I was going through our lists, trying to compile some things that we would talk about, I had a page. Doug, you had a page and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Andy had almost 4 pages.
Of games with modular boards.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
Well,
he has a ton
you know
of
why? Because he has
expansions.
he has
Shadows of Brimstone.
Yes. He also has a lot of dungeon crawlers. Andy's a dungeon crawl
Yep. Descent.
junkie.
Yeah, I would say a junkie.
He would say aficionado, but
No, it's definitely
we're
a
gonna
junkie.
definitely say junkie. And a
Yeah.
lot of those dungeon crawlers, right? They have modular tiles because that's how you build the dungeons.
Yep.
That does not surprise me one
Yeah.
little bit.
And Star Wars Imperial Assault was on all of our stacks. That filled up several lists as well. Star Wars definitely makes this list, Star Wars Imperial Assault.
Yeah.
But I intentionally left that off my top 5 because if anybody is familiar with the podcast, they would know that Star Wars Imperial Assault is my all-time favorite game.
Yeah.
And so it would be at the top of that list. So I intentionally left that off and went for other games.
I really tried to focus on games where I felt like the modularity added something really unique and fun to the game. So that's why I left Imperial Assault off. Yes, Imperial Assault is amazing. But also the board, the modular boards that are created and stuff, they're just tiles. They by themselves don't necessarily do anything really special. It's all of the units and the fight and the story and the characters and all of that make that game amazing. Not necessarily the tiles.
But the tiles do bring in variable play.
For sure.
And bring in that element, which is something we all look for, is not having that same experience, especially in these games that we're going to play over and over again.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really loved about Imperial Assault, well, I guess that I will say, is the tons of diversity. There's some of those games, they have modular boards, but they come with a little stack or their maps or something like that. Yes, they're fun. That doesn't necessarily, I'm not counting that against it, but sometimes play gets a little repetitive. This was something that I ran into when I was playing Deliverance. It's a great game. I absolutely love Deliverance, and it's one that I can't wait till we can all play it together. However, the map tiles on that were all of kind of the same town layout. And so there wasn't a lot that was different from tile to tile. In fact, even the A and B sides were, with the exception of a couple of the tiles that had some different art and some different special pieces and features on them, most of them were pretty generic and very samey. And that's something that you run into with a lot of these. And again, I'm not counting that against the game. The game was awesome, but the tiles didn't necessarily add anything really special to it. One thing about Imperial Assault is there were so many of them and they were so diverse. I mean, you had tiles that created
Swamplands.
Yeah, swamplands. You had
facility places, Tatooine.
Right,
all over.
like office complex kind of places on, you name it. It had all of the depth and breadth that Star Wars brings, was all kind of represented by those tiles. So that was something that I did really enjoy with that, but it did not make the top 5 list.
Put in that same group, Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, wide variety of tiles. When you're playing a game, your game's going to be different, but your game is following a scenario map. And so when I look at my modular games, you know what? I have to stop right there, because as I'm saying that, my number 1 game does not follow that rule right there, but nor does my number 3 game. But for the most part, if you take out my top 5 and find that that's an exception to the rule, I want to focus on, at least today, I want to focus on games where there's not necessarily a set map that you're creating with your modular tiles, but as the game is played,
there's some diversity and randomness to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also, and this is totally just a me thing, and I 100% recognize that. For me, when you talk about modular boards, there's something about that phrase that I had a really hard time including maps or boards, I guess, I get air quote boards, created by cards. That feels like its own category, but not.
Oh,
You know what I
really?
mean? Like I recognize that it's not, but for me that feels a little different. And maybe that's just because of my experience diving into what you can create with cards. That is so incredibly diverse. Do so much more with them for a lot cheaper. Cards are much easier to produce and you can do a lot more with them. And there's a lot of those games that use cards. I mean, one of my favorites of all time, Etherfields, the things that they did with cards to build out a lot of the boards on that was fantastic. Again, I didn't put it on my top 5 because I just sort of separated those a little bit. Tainted Grail used cards to build a map. Destiny's did that right. It does it really well. Uses cards to create a map.
Seventh Continent.
100%, yeah. Games like that. If the game board or whatever was created by cards, I sort of tucked that into a little bit of a separate category. Not saying that that's not part of the conversation or that you had to do that, but for me, I don't know why that was a separation, because I could probably fill a whole top 10 list of games that use cards to create a board. For me, I was focused a little bit more on actual boards, cardboard pieces.
So you're eliminating games like Seven Wonders Duel, Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle Earth.
I removed them from top 5 consideration.
Okay.
I'm not removing them from this conversation.
Okay, I'm following you now. I love those games. Bringing those up. Seven Wonders Duel, Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle Earth, very much the same model. Those games, similar model as the Seven Wonders Duel, using that row of cards that you can purchase from. That's a modular. That's going to be different every time, which does, I think, attribute to a lot of the replayability for that game. Because if it was a set pattern that comes out, then that would get very dry very quick. Another one that I really love that kind of is in that same model is Pirates of Maracaibo. You have the grid set out, similar that you would with Seven Wonders, but in a different sort of grid. But the cards that are in there, you have to put the treasure places so far apart. That's all random. When cards get picked up, then you're going to start replacing them with stack 2 cards so that they're going to eventually get grander and they're going to be more expensive, but hopefully by the time you're coming back to them, you're making more money. That variety is, I think, what makes that game a success. For me, that's what makes that game so replayable. Seven Wonders, Duel for Middle Earth, Pirates of Maracaibo. I think just that variety that you can just do, and it's just cards.
Yeah.
But that's what makes those games so replayable.
Mm-hmm. The ability for cards and even boards in some games introduce that randomness or even that random / escalation like you're talking, I think really great. And it's in that way that I think you get a little bit more of a living, breathing experience out of the board game, right? Because it changes. It's not static and you're not doing the same things or going to the exact same places over and over like you do with a lot of like worker placement games or some of those types of things. Instead, this turns it into a world that is built and then is transformed multiple times over and over. The world changes, features change. You flip a card and suddenly, a closed door is open to you, that kind of thing. And I think that's the excitement of having a modular system, is having random new things to explore and allowing the sort of world or universe or setting, whatever, to sort of breathe, evolve, and change as the game progresses. That to me is the strength of having these types of systems.
And I think we find a similar feel or a similar respect of the game with deck building. Deck building allows you to have a different experience every time you're playing. You're not just getting the exact same cards. So
yep, you're evolving that starting deck into something unique every time.
Yeah, I think kind of a classic game, I guess you can call it a classic game. It's been out long enough. Azul and all those that are in that series, those tiles that are coming out of that bag all make that random enough, putting those pieces onto your board. That variety, I think we're going to be using that variety or something along that line of replayability, diversity in the game. Simple, quick shout out to Azul and all those in the Azul series that.
Yeah, they do that really well. Technically, we talk about modular boards. I mean, they're just circles sitting out there, but you're loading up with different colors, and that's the design space, and that is the decision space that allows the players is what am I going to choose, what combos, how are those things going to be moved around, and changes by player count. That's a game that has endured in large part because that is a decision space that is fun to play in. 100%. One of the games I had on my list here was, for example, Fallout Shelter, the board game, and I don't know if you've actually played this.
I haven't played it. You talked about it. I was very excited to play it. It's material. I never played any of the video games. I sat through the TV series with my daughter, and that didn't change my life at all. I'm very interested to play it. When you were discussing it, it sounded good.
The board game's really fun. You don't really need to be too familiar with the with the actual,
Source
IP
material.
to enjoy the game. That's not a thing. In fact, if you understand the concept of there being a post-apocalyptic world and you need to survive in a vault that is underground because the surface is irradiated, if you can understand that concept, you basically get it. That's a game. Every player kind of has a floor, and you've got this elevator that goes down, and then those floors get built out left to right by introducing cards. New rooms provide different services or different places where you can put your workers down and take actions and do things. And again, it's the randomness that it introduces. Also the strategy, like what do I want to try to put in there based on how I'm trying to develop points and win this game. It's that such a great system. Again, cards. It's all cards. In fact, it actually uses fun transparent cards because you actually overlay like the monsters. So when you have the card down and then you put the monster on top of it, it actually looks like the monster's sort of in the room.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they do some kind of fun things. It's a pretty good little production and a fun worker placement game. But again,
I want to try it even more now.
Yeah, uses that modularity to great effect.
Yeah. Classic game, and this definitely is a classic game. This one goes way back to the year 2000, and this is a game that I tried to teach you, and it fell very flat with you.
Oh.
But this
excellent.
is Carlos Magnus.
Oh gosh, yeah, I did not like this game.
Yeah, put out these 12 to 13, I think it's 12 tiles that you put around the board.
Sure.
And you're trying to, and you're trying to use influence and trying to gain influence. The influence is represented by 5 colors. I have no idea what those influence factors were. They're all just down to colors, right? I need purple, I need green or whatever.
All I know is I was trying to move colors to other places with colors to do something. And then on Dave's turn, he was like, I'm going to do this and this and this. And then like he collected everything. And I was like, apparently I don't know how to play this game.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a very poor advantage because Dave and I had played that game, I would say 50 plus times easily.
Which is fine. I don't mind losing, but it has to be fun.
And it's a very Euro-heavy game, right? So fun's not as much of a factor as strategy is in this game. But Carlos Magnus, I thought was a very good game. I actually am surprised that it's rated at a 6.8. It is a very...
That seems high. Yeah, that does seem high.
It does seem high.
Yeah.
I was going to say the strategic level of it, I would rate it a little higher. Definitely, Doug, for your fun factor, I could see you rating it a lot lower. And that's probably going to be the same story with another one of my all-time favorite games, which is Attica, which is very much a modular board.
Which one is Attica? Is that the one where you play as like the Spartans and the different factions?
Yeah.
No, I like that game. I just think it's best as a 2-player game.
It is definitely best.
I didn't get as bent out of shape as it's Andy and James who got really bent out of shape because of the everyone's picking on the leader kind of thing.
Yep.
And I can totally see what they're talking about. I still think it's a fine game. I'm not crazy about it, but it's totally fine. I don't have the same problems with it that they did.
Funny, we were at BryceCon in January and Brent was there at like 2:00 in the morning. Brent sends me a picture, Attica on their table. And we were downstairs playing a game. He was upstairs playing Attica, and I almost jumped ship to go play Attica. But Attica is another classic game. It's right around the same time, 2000, 2002, I think it is. Very classic, modular, Euro. One of my all-time favorite games is Attica. Didn't make my top 5. Now that I'm talking about it, maybe I want to reconsider my top 5.
No, you're good.
No.
You're just fine. Another one that's been around for a while now that definitely is one that we need to talk about because it is at this point classic. I don't know. You can tell me if you think it's classic or not. I think it's becoming more and more of a classic as time goes by. But this is Mansions of Madness. And this is one that I almost included in my top 5. It was really, really close.
It's definitely a classic, an all-time classic, I think you would even call it.
And in particular, 2nd edition, right, which introduced the app and all that.
The better version,
but
yes.
If you have everything for this, there has to be close to 100 different tiles. When you plug the scenarios into the app, the vast number and diversity of the maps and layouts that it can create from, like the name implies, mansions, haunted mansions, crazy places, backyard gardens, to side alleys, to, cityscapes, forest areas, museums. There's even one that's on like a Zeppelin, what was the Hindenburg? What are those? The big flying machines?
A Zeppelin.
Okay.
Airship.
Sure. It's on a big airship. That was actually a really fun scenario. It was combat light, but the mystery and story of it were actually really good. The ability for those tiles to create these really incredible maps. Again, we go back to what you were saying earlier. You only start with 1 or 2 maybe laid out. And then you've just got all these little nodes, right? Little question marks and nodes and things you can go and explore and doors you can open and things you can try to figure out. And it's a little bit of a race against the clock because you can't dally, but you need to move along and find clues and unlock mysteries and open up whole areas of the map as you explore and go through doors and explore hallways and all these things, right? Like all these fun exploratory things that you get to do, exploration and discovery things you get to do in a game like this, that it's all created by that modular map system.
That's another thing that we very much enjoy is exploration. Talking about games that I missed that for some reason didn't show up on my list, Secrets of the Lost Station, Secrets of the Lost Tomb, which has a 10-year anniversary that's just about to be fulfilled. Even Betrayal at House on Haunted Hill. Those, or is it just House on the Hill? House on the Hill.
Yeah, House on Hill.
Yeah.
No, it's...
It's on the list.
We play games. Yeah, I think it's just House on Hill. Betrayal at House on Hill.
Betrayal House on the Hill.
Yeah.
And all those where you have a stack. Secrets of the Lost Tomb has a very big stack. Not as many as Mentions of Madness. I mean, Mentions of Madness, that app makes that game go from great to phenomenal. Yeah, that
really does.
That just kicks up that so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the 10-year anniversary of Secrets of the Lost Tomb has something like that. Secrets of the Lost Station and Secrets of the Lost Tomb could very much benefit from an app for those. Those are some great games. I love that when that modular board couples with that exploration. So you don't know what you're going to... It's like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get.
It's 100%. Games that are on this list because they technically meet the criteria, but they wouldn't have been consideration for top 5 because it's not that much a part of the game. So for example, Endless Winter Paleo Americans. I mean, this is a game that I would love to have put on my top 5 because I love this game and I always want to play it and I want to play it more and more and more. However, the modularity, the modular part, like it does have different boards. Like you lay them out and you're doing different things on different boards. So I guess in that regard, it kind of counts. But those boards are most of them are just doing the same thing no matter what game you play. They're just there to facilitate the game. It's really not that big of a deal. And they're not random. The way you place them doesn't really matter, whatever.
But when you're exploring...
But the explorer, that part of the game, which is only one part of the game, right? It's not the core part of the game. It's just one part. But I really appreciate how that works, right? And it's going to be different every single time, the setup and the strategy, because depending on the tiles that come out, they're going to have different nodes. You know, when you hit that eclipse phase every time, they're going to do different things for you depending on how you've explored and built out onto that map. I think that's a really strong part of the game. It's just also not the core part of the game.
I'm going through my list, finding some things too. That Memoir 44, which is a great game.
One. Good. Yep.
The board is definitely modular, but again, this is map layout and you're kind of following that same plane. So I think I tend to go more towards the games or the boards that are more modular, that is as that exploration goes. So a new one that I really want to get you to play, Douglas, that I really like is Loot.
Yeah, I need to learn this one.
And this Viking theme, you're putting your Vikings out on the board and you're exploring. What is going to come out this modular are the tiles. There's a couple set up to match the board, but also the longboats that come out is what really drives the game. You can pick up a longboat and you can put it on the board, put one out each turn. At the end of the game, if you don't meet the requirements of the longboat, then you're going to have to suffer -5 for each of those. So you want to be conservative about what you're putting out, but each of them is going to require 3 resources that you're going to have to explore on the main board, which is also modular as you put those pieces together. Band your Vikings to explore, collect those resources, put them next to your longboat to complete those, and then you're going to get points they're going to give you bonus points for your resources, whether that's trees, towers, villages, sheep, or all those. It's going to increase what you're going to score for all those. Very simplistic game, but I really enjoy the modular board in itself. I think you'll like this game, Doug.
I think I will too, based on what I've seen. We just need to be able to sit down and play it. I'm definitely looking forward to that. One that I think fits this category, one that I finally got to teach to you at BryceCon this year, was Nunatak, the Temple of Ice. And that one's fun because it's modular, but it's modular in 3D space. The base is random and is random and modular. And then as you build that tower up using your ice blocks, every time a quadrant is formed, you randomly flip a new tile out, and then that becomes a section of the next floor up. And you're building these floors, I think 4 or 5 high by the time the game's over. I thought that was really fun, and it makes the game different every time you play it.
Yeah, love that three-dimensional feel of it, right? You have those big chunky pieces. The ice blocks just texturally gives you a nice feel. At the end, you're excited to put that crown on the top of that crown.
That last little tower piece. Yeah.
I love that game. Picked it up. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. I don't know if Cheryl will play it with me or not. I think it's one that she'll get very mad at very easily. And those
really?
ice blocks would go flying across the room. So, not that she throws stuff, but I think it's a game that she'll get frustrated with.
Yeah, keep the pointy objects away from people. Who
so
want to
maybe
stab
if you
your
bring
eyes
it
with them.
to SaltCON in a couple of weeks, I'll try to get her to play that.
It's on the list of games to take for sure. I really like that one.
One of my favorite games that I've discovered on BGA was PI.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
This is a great game. You have the cityscape out there that is put in not a grid, but it's put in a set pattern. All those cards represent different parts of the city, and you shuffle those up. And then you have crimes that are going to be put out, and then you have suspects that are going to be put out. And you're trying. It's a Clue-esque type of game where you're trying to
deduction,
deduce who is the suspect. What is the crime and where's the location? Once I played this on BGA, I thought this is a great game. This is one that I'm going to go out and try to find, and I could not find it anywhere. And then I finally found somebody who was selling it on BGG Market, and I ordered it and was way happy to get it. And then when I got it, there was this big old hole that was in the bottom of my box. And sure enough, it was in the bottom of the game. Fortunately, it didn't damage any of the game components, but my game has a nice hole in it, and it was so hard for me to find that I didn't complain about it at all.
Nope.
And I wasn't about to send it back and go through a claims and never have that game again, so I just kept it, hole and all, put some nice duct tape on it, respect the game, and just left the hole there. But PI is a great game, and it's one that I love because I make a spreadsheet when I'm playing it. And I love spreadsheets.
Nerd.
Yes.
I really like PI too. I think it's a great game. This is one that I would love to see somebody just make a simple little companion app for. Honestly, I don't even think the company needs to do it. Somebody could just do it as like a project in college, or somebody could just do it. It wouldn't be hard. That's the only thing, is you just got to take the human factor out of playing it at the table, because it can be really frustrating when somebody gets your clues wrong.
Yeah.
Despite the penalties that are involved, it still doesn't feel good when you figure it out, or you should have figured it out, and you technically had it right, and then the person told you it was wrong because they weren't doing it right. That's my only complaint, which is why I really like playing it on BGA, because the app controls all of that, and
no mistakes.
No mistakes are made.
Yeah, that reminds me. Guess what you're getting tonight?
A PI invite?
You're getting an invitation
Sweet.
to PI.
Yeah, I really like that one. A couple of games that use, I think, modularity really well, even though it's simple. Parks.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Parks. I think it's a great little game, but you have that like beginning camp to the end, right? You sort of go through that trail, and it gets added to every round of the game, but those all get mixed up and randomized every single time. It actually completely changes the strategy of every round, because you're going to have certain actions that you can do before other actions, and certain resources that you can collect at different times. You might be able to do some of the more powerful things. If those tiles get put at the beginning of that trail, then you've got to be creative about how to take advantage of them, or come back to them, or leave one hiker behind so that they can take those after the first hiker has gone through and collected the resource necessary for them, or whatever the case may be. But it changes every single round and every single game. I think really helps that game feel different and gives slightly different strategies every time you play it, just because of the modularity of those simple little tiles that you're moving your workers across, your hikers. I think that was a really good implementation of modularity in a board game. And then the other one I was going to mention kind of with that is Quest for El Dorado. Classic deck building game, but it just has all those modular tiles. And I think you can technically create, I think there is a rule set in there for creating your own, your own adventures or whatever. Yep. But a lot of them are just, you're pulling it out of the book and putting them together. But again, it's the modularity that makes that game so replayable, because they absolutely could have just done like a board.
Yep.
And even made it like double-sided, easier board on one side and an advanced board on the other. But instead they did, I think, the right thing and made it all modular with it's a different path and different strategies every time you play that game to get through it.
It's such a easy and very enjoyable game. All right, last one or two that I want to hit. Flamme Rouge, bicycle racing game, does have one element that Heat doesn't have, and that is the modular board. The boards can be different. There are some set patterns, but you can make your own races if you want. Heat does have the multiple maps, which is nice. And Heat is a great game all in its own.
And more coming.
Yeah, and more coming. But Flamme Rouge does have that modular board where you're creating those different bike paths. But it's still a simpler game for sure. But once you start adding in the weather element, some drag that you're going to get from other players, the complexity does go up a little. Definitely not a complex game, but not a simple game either. The last one I really wanted to mention was Magic Maze. Have you ever played Magic Maze?
No.
Magic Maze is a very fun game, but it has an aggression pawn. When there's a move on the table that somebody else can see that you make, they grab this pawn and they put it in front of you. They're supposed to just put it in front of you and leave it there, but as it's timed game, right? There's a sand timer, and so as time starts to get more limited,
you're really selling me on it.
This pawn starts to be, I'm slapping this pawn in front of you, saying you need to do something, which sometimes it is. You're just totally missing something. That's the only downside. This game is great. You have 4 heroes that have been sucked from their fantasy realm and shoved into a shopping mall.
Okay.
You're trying to find the exits. Each character has their own unique exit that they need to find, and you have certain things that you can go up an escalator. The only thing is you're not in control of any one pawn. You're not in control of any one hero. We're all trying to help the other heroes. So I might be able to move cards left. You might be able to move cards up the escalator. Somebody else might be able to move the cards down the escalator. Somebody else might move the cards to the right, and you can't say anything.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where the aggression pawn comes in, because I'm trying to tell you to do something, but I can't tell anything. So the only thing I can do is slam this pawn in front of you. As you go, the levels will get more challenging. The boards are all brought out randomly. Later on, you need to find each hero's particular weapon. Then you need to unlock certain things so that you can go to certain areas of the mall. And then you have to avoid security. A very quick, simple, fun little game. It has a PGA implementation. This is one that I'm sure you have to play live.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
It's not something that you can do turn-based. But I think this game is a lot of fun. But if you have somebody who gets frustrated real easy, or somebody who gets aggressive really easy, can taint the game pretty bad. I've had a blast with this. And then there's was it Magic Maze on Mars or something like that? I can't remember the title. They had a re-implementation of it. I'll have to look that up.
Sounds like the kind of game I would like to try once.
I think your kids would like it too.
Would they?
Something that your kids would like.
Let's give it a shot sometime.
Magic Maze on Mars is the other one. But yeah, and there is a kids version, Magic Maze Kids. And oh wow, I haven't seen this one. Magic Maze Tower just came out this last year. Huh. Somebody's going to have to go searching.
Guess what's getting added to your cart?
I'll have to see if I can find it somewhere first. Oh, yeah, it's pretty available. Yeah, it's getting somebody's cart.
At the beginning of the episode for highlights, I was talking about Worms, the board game. That's one that uses modular tiles.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, players get to custom create the map. Every player gets to pick a tile, and they get to place it in a unique certain way. So every time you play, it's going to be a slightly different map, which I think is really cool. As I was talking about that, I had mentioned Thunder Road Vendetta. Love those tiles, yes. Right? The race tiles.
A great game.
Yeah, it makes it different every single time you race. You're gonna have different obstacles in your way and different things you've got to get around and a different path you've got to try to take. So I love all that. The last one that I wanted to mention that was on my list was Undaunted.
That's a great one.
Normandy and North Africa and Battle of Britain and Stalingrad all use those tiles. Normandy, North Africa, and Battle of Britain, they're more there to just kind of create the map that exists in the book. So there's not a lot of randomization to it. But Stalingrad, you actually can permanently damage those tiles. You have to permanently remove them and replace them. And again, it gives it that kind of living, breathing world feel to the whole experience. Now with Callisto, thank you. Callisto 2200. They gave up that modularity for the boards. I actually think that was probably a good move, because if you're just recreating the same maps every time, why not just have those maps able to just fold out and put out in front? I actually thought that was kind of a good move. But those games do use modular tiles, and I think they use them relatively well. So
yeah.
Yep.
This is a game I'd really like to get Cheryl to play, because it's a great 2-player game, and I'd love to be able to explore that a lot more, because it's very rare on a regular game night that there's 2 people here. Because by the time I finish explaining it, somebody else shows up. And but this is one that I don't think is up Cheryl's alley. I would love to try it with her, but just shoot 'em up, pow, pow games is not her style. So
I get that.
We need to spend some time together, Doug.
Yep.
To get some of those played.
We've got a lot. So much that needs to be played.
Yeah.
The whole time we're going through this list, I'm thinking about my top 5 because those games take everything we've talked about, and I think ramp it up even more. An exciting time talking about those next time.
Sounds great. We'll look forward to that.
Awesome. Until next time.
We'll see you putting together your own board at the game table. I was going to go somewhere, and I just drew a blank. So, but you can have a modular game table of your own at the game table.
Thank you for listening and being a part of Meeple Nation. If you would be so kind as to follow, subscribe, share, and rate or review this podcast, it really helps to spread the fun. You can be more involved in supporting the podcast by joining the nation at patreon.com/MeepleNation, or you can find a link at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. And while you're there, look at all our extra content. There are links to all our past episodes, a wide variety of blogs, pictures from our Instagram feed, and bios for all the hosts and our awesome bloggers. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under Meeple Nation. If you would like to chat with the hosts or other members of the nation, you can join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We hope to see you again at a game night, a con, or maybe a suspense-driven evening of werewolf. Thank you for listening and supporting Meeple Nation, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We very much want to thank our patrons who help keep the podcast running. I personally want to thank my co-hosts for all the help they provide with both content here on the podcast, in addition to what we have available on our website. Without them, the podcast would not happen. If you too would like to support the podcast, you can join the nation at patreon.com/Meeple_nation. Or you can find a link to Patreon at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. If you have any questions, comments, or games you feel should be on our radar, you can always reach us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. I am grateful to Doug and Andy who helped me edit episodes, and I want to thank James and Kim Clark who do the editing on our blogs and on our webpage, which can be found at meeplenation.com. We want to thank Brain Detergent for our music. If you want to find more from him, you can follow his links that can be found on our webpage, or simply search for Brain Detergent on YouTube to find more of his tracks. Thank you again for listening and being part of the Meeple Nation community.